Hey guys, it's Natalie and I am doing my February wrap-up and my first wrap-up ever, which is so cool. I have been binge watching all the wrap-up videos for the last couple of days and I figured it was about time that I did my own. I'm going to be talking about 8 books. Not that I really read 8 books. I think I read about 6 books, but 2 of them were kind of at the tail end of January, so I decided to go ahead and throw them in the mix and talk about those 2. So let's get started with the wrap-up. The first book I'm going to talk about is probably a book that almost all of you have already read, but I just happened to come upon it a little late, and that is the book Cinder by Marissa Meyer. To me, I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was amazing. When I heard that they were doing a retelling of Cinderella, but it was going to be sci-fi, and she was going to be a cyborg. I mean, Cinderella. Cinderella is a cyborg. At first I was like, okay, that sounds kind of weird, but okay, I'll check it out since everybody's recommending it, and I'm so glad I did. It was really, really great. It definitely was sci-fi. It definitely had a lot of Cinderella elements to it, but it definitely was its own story as well. Next book I want to talk about, and I really almost don't want to talk about it because I think, once again, I'm talking about a book that 98% of you have already read, but I have just finished The Infernal Devices, so this is Clockwork Princess, which is the last in the trilogy of Infernal Devices. And for those 2% out there who don't know what I'm talking about, there's a woman named Cassandra Clare who loves to write about shadow hunters, and she has The Mortal Instruments. Then she did a prequel. This is set in 1800s in London, and she's done a few other trilogies and series too, but I'm pretty sure all of them have something to do with shadow hunters. And this one, like I said, is a prequel to The Mortal Instruments. It follows a woman named Tessa Gray who can kind of shapeshift into anybody, but not only does she shapeshift, she can find out their thoughts and feelings, and she's basically just trying to find out who she is. At the same time, there's like this madman after her who definitely knows what she is and wants her for her abilities, and she has to kind of figure it out, and she's kind of hanging out with the shadow hunters at their institute in London. There's a love triangle, really great characters. I can see why so many people like this. I gave this book 4 stars just because there was so much hype around this book that it kind of detoured it a little bit. If I'd never heard of it and I picked it up, I might have rated it higher. But you know, when you have a hype around a book, it's kind of hard to give it 5 stars because, you know, the hype does something. I don't know what the hype does. It does something though. The next book I have to talk about, because I sort of kind of read it, is The Idiot by, I'm thinking, Elif Batuman. I had to give this 1 star. I know I did a book haul, it was part of a book haul, and I explained that this was a book for one of my book clubs, and that I had read the first 20 pages, and it sounded really interesting. It's about a girl named Colleen from Turkish immigrants, and she's going to Harvard for the first time. But the first 20 pages I read, you know, you're just kind of following her around and seeing the places she's going and the classes and whatnot. But still, nothing has really happened yet. So you're kind of waiting for something to happen. And I only got through half of it before I had to go to my book club because a bunch of stuff came up, whatever, and I wasn't able to finish it. So when I went to my book club, I said, guys, I am so sorry. I'm going to just admit it to you. I only read the first half. You guys are just going to have to fill me in on what I missed. And I am not joking. 5 or 6 women simultaneously said, oh, you didn't miss anything. Half a book, and I didn't miss anything. So I'm like, well, what about that guy? She started talking to that guy. Yeah, nothing happened. Well, what about that class or that program she was maybe going to start? Nope, didn't happen. I'm like, so nothing happened. They said, yeah, this book was basically a whole book of not much happening. So I don't know if this was supposed to be a deeper meaning, but I mean, I was with a smart group of women. I mean, 2 of them were medical doctors. I think we were pretty smart. So if there's some deep, deep meaning, I think we would have figured it out. Now, maybe you know about this book and you've heard what the deeper meaning is. Please let me know, because not only would I love to know, the rest of my book club, we would all like to know, why was this book written? I even threw out the possibility that maybe, you know, well, she just wanted to talk about the Harvard experience. I don't know if it's a her or a him, Elif, I'm not sure. But I thought, oh, the author, you know, probably had to do a lot of research about Harvard. Maybe that was the point. And then somebody goes, actually, the author went to Harvard. So I'm like, okay, so not a lot of research done. I don't know. If you know something, please let us know, because it says it's a bestseller. I think it says it's a Pulitzer Prize finalist. What are we missing? I don't know. For me, this is a whole book of nothing really ever happening, and you're just waiting and waiting and waiting. So my advice to you is don't look at this book. Don't pick this book up. If you see this book, run the other way. That is my advice on this book. Now, the next book was also a book club pick for my other book club, and I feel the exact opposite way about it. It was Close Enough to Touch, and I gave this 5 stars. This book was so good. I am so happy that I got to read it. This is one of those books you want to shout from the rooftops. I found an amazing book. You guys have to read it. I told you during my book haul that what I knew at the time was it was about a woman who was allergic to human touch. Well, I've learned that after reading it, it's a woman named Jubilee, and she very much is allergic to human touch, and she's been a recluse since high school and gotten away with it because she had her mother who paid for everything, but then her mother passes away and she's forced out into the real world. And the only passion that she's ever had is the passion for reading. So luckily she gets a job at the library. And then there's another character. This book is told in 2 points of view. So you have Jubilee, and it'll have her name at the beginnings of the chapters that she is telling in first person. And then we have a character named Eric. And Eric is also an underdog. He's getting a divorce. His daughter won't talk to him. At the same time, he's had his best friend's son thrown in that he has to raise because his best friend has passed away. And of course, his son has got all kinds of issues that you would expect a child to have when both parents pass away. I believe it's in a plane crash. So these 2 underdogs end up, their paths cross, and you just love them. I love these characters so much. This book was so heartwarming. I cannot wait to go to book club and talk about it. But if you get the chance, you definitely will love this book. You really, really will. And if you don't, I want to know why. How could you not love this book? It's so beautiful. So after giving you a 1-star book and then giving you a 5-star book, I thought, what should I do? I'll give them a 3-star book. My 3-star book for the month would be Sometimes I Lie. It wasn't a bad book. I'm glad I read it. It was mystery thriller, and I was definitely entertained as I was reading it. Was it one of those books that I was like at the end, oh my gosh, I have to tell everybody about this book? No, it was more of the, I read it. I was like, oh, cool, that was pretty good. 3 stars isn't bad. In fact, there's a big booktuber that I cannot think of which one it was, but she recently was talking about how 3 stars does not mean it's a bad book. It just means it's kind of in the middle. It's about a woman named Amber who's in a coma, but she's aware of all the conversations that are happening around her. She's trying to figure out how she got into this coma. She knows there was some kind of accident. She has this weird man who visits her and says weird things to her like they know each other or he's out to get her. And then we also get, when she's not kind of talking to us from the coma, we get a lot of story of what happened leading up to her going into this coma from an accident. There were definitely twists and turns I did not see coming. I guess the reason why it stayed a 3-star is I didn't get super attached to the characters the way I do in some books, but it was good. It was good. It wasn't great and amazing, but it was good. I'm glad I read it. 3 stars. All right, now I'm going to give you another 5-star book. I'm just taking you all over the spectrum, aren't I? I have talked a little bit about it before, and it's the Dead Queens Club. And I was wondering if I should recommend that you read this only after getting some background history about Henry VIII. But when I went to one of my workshop classes, Hannah Capin, who wrote this book, actually brought that up. There was a student in my class who had submitted writing that was supposed to be a retelling of a classic. And so before I could even ask Hannah that question, she told that student and all of us that even if you're doing a retelling of history or a retelling of an old story, the book or the story still needs to be able to stand on its own. Meaning people who do not know the history, people who have not read the classic or whatever story this is coming from, should be able to read and enjoy this book. It has to stand on its own. And I feel like it does. I will tell you, this is very, very fast-paced, which I love fast-paced books, but it is fast-paced. There are a lot of characters, and the author will tell you she knows there's lots of characters because there kind of has to be lots of characters. Henry VIII had 6 wives, and 2 of them were beheaded. And so she's trying to capture this into a high school story. It is told by a girl called Cleves because she's from Cleveland, but she really represents the fourth of Henry VIII's wives, who I guess when their marriage ended, I don't know if it was annulled or they got divorced or whatnot, it went very smoothly. She stayed a part of the court. She was actually known afterwards as the king's sister because they were such close friends. So picking that wife, or that character that represents that wife, actually made a lot of sense. So yes, I gave this 5 stars, and not because I know the person who wrote it. I gave it 5 stars because it was a 5-star read for me. Definitely check it out. And this is what I think. Yes, it is a great book on its own. But if you do happen to know a little history, check out a few Henry VIII movies. I think it makes it go from a great book to an amazing book. So that's what I would tell you. That's the way I look at it, I think. All right, the next book I'm going to talk about is The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. You might have heard about this. This has been getting a lot of hype in the last 6 months, and it is a mystery thriller. I gave it 4 stars, and the only reason I gave it 4 stars was there's multiple mysteries going on in this book, but I kind of figured out a couple of them early, and I don't like it when I figure out a couple of them early. But I know a couple other people who read this book who said, really? I didn't figure out any of that. So it was a really great book. It's about a woman who is a recluse because of some situations that have happened to her, but she watches all her neighbors through this camera that she has set up upstairs, I believe, and she's pretty sure she's witnessed a murder. But when she calls the police and tries to get the police involved, they're like, there was no murder. What are you talking about? So she's sitting there going, did I see a murder? Or am I losing my mind? What is happening here? And like I said, there's multiple little mysteries going on as well in her life. So I really enjoyed it, but I would say 4 stars. But 4 stars is good, I think. The last book I will discuss with you is The Broken Girls, and I take that back. I am not going to discuss it with you because I did a whole video just on this book. Obviously, this book was 5 stars if I did a whole video about it, and I'm just going to remind you, if some of you are going, which book was that? I said, that's the book about the boarding school that over a course of 100 years, that property has had multiple murders on it, and there's 2 timelines, and one of the timelines is in the 1950s, and one of them is in 2014, and you have the 1950s, you actually have girls from the boarding school as the storytellers, and in 2014 there's a journalist whose sister was killed on those grounds, and she's trying to investigate because the school got closed down, but now they're going to reopen it, and then the timelines kind of work their way to each other. I love this book, and I gave it 5 stars so much that after I read it, I said, I'm doing a video just on that. So I will try to link that. Definitely great. In fact, somebody commented, they said after they watched the review, they said, all right, you talked me into it, I'm going to read it. And then they commented and they really liked it too. They were like, you were right, or something to that effect. So I'm not the only one who thinks this is a great book. Everybody I know that's read it has liked it. Granted, I don't know a whole lot of people who've read it, so I don't know if that's saying a whole lot, but the few people I know who've read it have really liked it. So those are all the books I have for this wrap up. I hope I did a good job since I've never done a wrap up before. I will continue to watch your wrap ups because I love wrap ups. Book hauls are my favorite, and then second are wrap ups. And then yearly wrap ups are my most favorite because I was watching Best of 2018, but I think I'm gonna have to wait a while before I see a best of for a year. Best of 2019, I think I got a bit of a wait ahead of me. So thank you for watching, and I will catch you later. Bye-bye.